Recently, I did a video where I talked about my experience going to an indie show for the first time. And while I was there, I told you guys that I encountered a tag team that really stood out to me and really made an impression on me. I reached out to them and they were happy to sit down and do an interview and let me ask some questions similar to the previous Dijak video that we've done here, but from the indie wrestler perspective. So I'm really excited to introduce you to those effing guys. And if you find yourself at all interested in seeing more on them, a link to all their socials will be in the description. So check them out. I hope you enjoy. And as promised, I am joined by Don Tone, Jay Leo, those effing guys. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming here, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited. We ever since we met at the first event, and then seeing your video and everything, it's just been super cool. You know, everything that you've helped us, translate and have people see, and it's different. We're not used to this sort of exposure.
Yeah, not used to. Like I said, I think when we originally talked, I was like, it was really nice to start seeing some of that like social media engagement and things like that. And it's like seeing that engagement and kind of that feedback was very nice to hear. So
yeah, there's a good community here, and I think you guys made a pretty good impression. I'm glad that I could help that. But the first thing I gotta ask is, Jay and Don, I've done interviews similar to this in the past with someone with Dijak, which you guys said that you took a look at that interview, and I would really love to ask you similar questions, but from the indie pro wrestler level. So my first question, with two people who are obviously at some point you got into wrestling, you wanted to do this from the start, was it something you knew that you wanted to do together? Was one of you wanting to pursue wrestling and actually do it, and the other maybe just stayed a fan? How did the connection start of you guys wanting to do this together?
It was kind of just coincidence. It felt like it would have been easier in the time. I mean, I think we both jumped into it. I know I wanted to be a singles wrestler, and that's what I was working towards in my first couple attempts into wrestling training and wrestling school. And I know you were didn't really plan on tag team wrestling either.
I was doing it as a bucket list item. I was there. I got out of college. I was very happy with where my life was at, and I kind of got a point where I felt like I was a little stagnant in my life, and that's what really drove me to finally make that call and go be like, let's go check this like true like last thing I feel like I have on my like if I died tomorrow, I'd have this regret that I never tried wrestling.
We were in it around the same time. I mean, Don is my older brother of 10 years, and I'm 10 years younger than him. So I think the idea of when we were in it, like, okay, so we're going to get trained, we're going to do our own thing, we're going to see if this sticks. But then I think when we were about ready to start working shows, I think I mentioned to you, I'm like, hey, we learned everything at the same pace. We know what we can do because we learned it at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think it would just be easier, especially in terms of getting bookings, if we just did the tag team thing, because there's not a lot of guys who are coming out of their school as a tag team with the goal to stay a tag team, to hit those milestones in their career. And we both love tag team wrestling. I think that's the thing that made us jump into it, is because even though we wanted to be singles guys, we also both had this really deep passion for like tag teams, like the Dudley Boys and like the Hardys, and then like some modern teams too, like who are on the indies, like Santana Ortiz of Proud and Powerful.
Even the old school like Arn and Tully.
That's a big one for us.
Yeah. The Rockers and
Rock and Roll Express.
The Rock and Roll Express, those were all really big. But yeah, getting into wrestling for me just started jumping back. I felt like my partner was one of the most supportive people of like, go live your dreams and like do it. Like, and I thank him so much for like giving me that push. Because I really don't think I would have ever tried it. Dude, let's just do it. Like, let's do it. Let's commit. And like you said, it happened right around COVID. Right at the tail end of like when it was, I guess you could call it calming down, that January. And it was kind of just us and the coaches, and that was it. And that we really got a lot of time in the ring together, and that chemistry just kept forming and forming in the ring. So
at this point, would you say it has surpassed the bucket list item?
Yes. Oh my God, yes. I feel like at this point, I'm adding things to my bucket list, which I didn't feel like I was really thinking about doing before wrestling. Now I'm over here like, what's next in wrestling? Like, what can we accomplish? Because I thought when I first got in, like, oh, it's going to be a year or two before I even have my first match. I'm going to be training forever. I'll probably never have a match. And it was like 2 months later, we had our first match, and it was crazy.
That's awesome.
So things just got rolling, and it was like, man. And then people were like, you guys kind of seem like you've got like a natural talent for it. I remember one of our first coaches used to always tell us is like, you guys really have that it factor. And not a lot of people have that it factor. And that was such an interesting compliment we used to get when we first started.
Odd one.
And I think it was and then it was always paired with the energy. It was always paired with, you guys have so much more energy than everybody else.
I feel like this is everything I said about you in the indie show video. I think that's kind of essentially the first impression I got from you guys. So I totally buy that.
It was weird, honestly, getting in sync so fast. It was weird to me. I'm like, man, I wonder how that's even possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like everything we do, it's like the way we create stuff, the way we go about ideas and everything is so like, we'll start to build something. And even if we don't necessarily fully agree on the beginning of what the idea is, it always goes like, oh, well, maybe we do it this way. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, because then if we do it that way, it'll turn into this. And all of a sudden it's rolling. And then we got it. And it's like, wow, that didn't take long for us to go from this might be something that could possibly be a thing to, oh, we got it. This is an idea we are doing tomorrow. So
that's awesome.
Which is pretty sweet because we're a team.
When you're kind of like having these ideas, like you maybe having like these brainstorm sessions, like that prompts a question that I've just had for being in this early stage of getting into wrestling, being a wrestler. What, if you could give me any peek behind the curtain of what that brainstorming session is like when you're trying to figure out maybe like what you want your character, your gimmick to be, like how does one be like, this could be our finisher? What does that brainstorming session look like?
I'm so glad you asked this question because it starts with Don, and it starts with a text or a voice memo.
It's usually a voice memo.
The idea is so out there. It's always just like, so what if we took a guy and it usually always ends with like, to summarize, what if we killed a man? And I'm always the guy going, okay, I like it, but how can we make this like, one, work in a wrestling match, and two, not fatally injure somebody? And so then I'll take it. It's always either at work or if I'm just doing something and I'll read it or I'll listen to it. I'm like, yeah, that wouldn't work. And then I'll sit there and all of a sudden I'm just like, you know what? You know what we could do with that though? And usually that turns into something pretty good. It has to, what it needs to be, it always stems from of Don seeing something or wanting to accomplish something in a spot. And it's like, the end goal is this. And then if I hear that, I'm like, all right, cool. Now how do we get to that? Or what does that set up? And then by the time we get together, it's like, all right, this is how we do it. And this is why it works for us. And this is how it's our own. And I think we're really good at the innovative offense, the type of matches where we're always doing stuff that you didn't think you'd see out of us.
Yeah.
Which we found out this past weekend, which it's a good thing, but it's also something we have to make sure that we keep in check because there's only, I think what we're learning right now in our career is that there's a time and a place. And we really like the style of matches we work and we like the stuff we do, but you're going to work with so many different people at so many different levels. And now we've gotten better at deciding which idea is, oh yeah, we'll do that. That can be an every match thing versus that's a really good idea, but that might happen this year, or it might be a down the road idea.
Do you mean like sometimes it needs to be done? Maybe it's something that needs to be executed with someone that you're working with that's experienced. Is that what you mean by that, or is it
not necessarily? Because like in last night's incidents, I think the biggest thing that translated to us is what does the crowd expect you to do, and we've kind of got to like, what are 5 things the crowd expects you to do, and I really had to sit there and think like, what are 5 moves or sequences or things that I do in the ring or Jay does in the ring or that we do in the ring that people remember and go, oh, I can't wait until they do the double 10 punch spot in the corner, or man, I can't wait till they hit the DOA, and it was we realized that we didn't have those 5 things last night, which was humbling. It was very humbling. In a time
This
right
is
now
something
where
you
we
guys talked
feel
about. I'm sorry to cut. This is something you guys talked about like after the match, reflecting on it, or it's
before and after,
okay.
actually. You know, and thank you to all the people who are always looking out for us, and helping us realize and see those things and give us those insights when you're not seeing them yourselves.
I think it was less about that we didn't have them, and there were some other factors of like, this might not be the time or place to hit this or that.
Yeah.
So I think we're just, I'm never gonna say that we are, you know, perfect at anything, because we are always looking to learn about how to do things, and how to be better at so many different aspects. But I think the theme of last night and the theme we're going forward is we have all the pieces and we have all the tools. It's time about like fine tuning each part so that the whole machine moves smoothly. Because we have a lot of good stuff. I think we're now have to hit that point as wrestlers where we are like, okay, obviously we can't do everything every single time, so we have to start to organize this stuff, because that's how we are though. We're very just like, this would be cool, this would be cool, this would be cool.
We like innovation, and we like intricate, and we like new setups for things and new looks, and I think that's how we've always structured our matches. But maybe saying we don't have those 5 things is wrong. We haven't established those 5 things. We need to learn what we want those 5 things to truly be. But I watched your Dijak interview, and I really liked the thing he talked about with the jargon and like the slang, and when people are finally calling it, because that's my favorite part in the back. After you've talked about it and you learn what everybody can do, and now we're at the part where like, all right, let's call it one more time before we go out there, guys. That is the funnest time for me, because that's when I feel like me and you're having the most fun, and you're saying like kind of the goofy things that are just like those key words or whatever. Like, oh yeah, then I'm gonna go, you like drop down, and then I'm gonna give you like the one guys they call it a burrito, and it's like you just learn people's slang, and it's just it's funny when you're calling it, because we're just out there making sound effects, and like everyone's like, you don't have to say anything, and it's like I think that's one of the, when we're calling it, that's the funnest time for me, when it's like, let's call it one more time before we go out there. Because that's when everyone's got their stuff down, and we're kind of just doing that last walkthrough, so it's the last thing in your brain before you hit the
so that's you guys literally before you go out there. If your tag team match, it's the 4 of you kind of verbally going through the match one more time, almost like a quick verbal rehearsal then, or
a walkthrough.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, it's like a language. Like once we
whole dialect,
you just figure out what the other guys do and what you do, and you put it in, and we know how the structure should be, and we know what outcome there has to be, because that's what Paul is expecting of us, to move the story by setting up. Like every match we have is never just start the match, pin the guy, that's it. We always try to make sure that every time we wrestle, especially like Paul's promotion and most of the places we're working, that the thing that happens in the match prior leads the next match, and then that match sets up a match after that. Like we never just call a match to be like a one and done. And as you've probably seen, since you've seen us perform at CCW, everything we do leads into something else. Because we like to show that above anything else, we can really pull people into a story and really make people enjoy watching, because I'm really big into movies and cinema.
Yeah, there it is. There's the word cinema.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do before wrestling. I wanted to make movies or be in movies or write movies. And so anytime we're in there, I think, and it's kind of the style that we have now, is we want to be able to take wrestling and bring those moments of like, wow, I am so invested in this story, like I'm watching a good movie or like I'm watching a good series. And I think we accomplished that in most matches. I mean, last night was the end of our match was definitely cinema. It was definitely something that you could see being portrayed in a more of like a movie sense. I mean, I love that about
you guys are 2 for 2 for doing that. For myself and Tally, the first night was I think it ended with it being it was projecting the next week that you were going to have the title versus title. So I'm already linked up, like, okay, well, I got to see that. And then this week, the title versus title's happening, and you guys get jumped. And so obviously there's got to be a fallout from that. So there's always like, you deliver that week, and then you set something up. It's like, well, I can't miss the next one now. I think you do that really well. I think it's really interesting that you wanted to be in movies and tell these kinds of stories. And it's so funny how in life you do end up kind of achieving that or doing that, but maybe not the way you pictured. So I think that's really cool that you're doing that. That spawns a question I didn't even think I realized I had. But are you guys at home practicing a promo, like working something at home? Is there like a, you're kind of, it's like people, a lot of people, they'll sing in the shower, they'll replay arguments they had at the store, or what they would do differently. Are you kind of like cutting it, like how you maybe would have done it or how you would do it next week, in these little self-practice promos at home?
Personally, I do a lot on the way to the gym, on the way to work, on the way home from work. If I'm on the Stairmaster, if I'm lifting weights, I think about like a line, and I think about like the cadence or how I want a promo to go, or like I'm writing a couple right now. And I think that's what sets us apart, is like, I don't write promos for like line for line. I write them in my brain. I imagine like a scene from a movie, and I'm like, how would this character talk in this situation? Why? And so a lot of our cinematic stuff and a lot of our promos are usually based around an idea. And the idea is, by the end of this, I want our characters to be perceived this way. So how are we going to have our characters talk and look? And how's the environment going to look? How's the sound going to be? How's the lighting going to be, to really put over this idea of like, this is the direction we're going. So what I usually do is, as I go over it and I think of a line that just might sound good in a promo, I write it down. And then as I'm putting together a scene, like we have one that we're shooting coming up that I'm very excited for, that one, I'm like, all right, here's the scene. Here's where my character has dialogue. What could I say? I go back on this list of like lines that would be really impactful for this moment. I'm like, oh, this one would be really good for this scene. So I know my way is it's probably not the standard way wrestlers go over promos.
Well, you're the movie guy. You're the
exactly.
You're looking at it from that different lens. I mean, you could absolutely see that as an advantage, is that you might be thinking of the little details that others aren't.
Cutting promos in the mirror, like practicing lines. I remember like our first couple promos, like the whole car ride to wherever we're gonna cut the pro line, like, God, do my lines. I don't feel that anymore. Now I always make the joke like, your storyboard, but I just go, I'm an actor. And it's funny because I see your stuff and you write things in a way that, like once I read it, I'm gonna be able to translate it. And I feel like that's where we have a really good chemistry of like, I know the way he writes things and the way he put it down, I'm going to be able to translate this into however I need to present it. And so if I ever think of anything of my own, like a line or whatever, or like an idea in my mind, I feel like I'm more like having like a dream or like a revelation of just like, oh, I thought of this passage like that has like this very direct message. Like I think our promo before all class, I was very like, normally I'm not like, no, I want to say it exactly word for word. Like usually when I write it, when you write it, I can get that like this. I was like, no, I like how you wrote that. Say it exactly like that. Like I really like that. So I feel like that's for me, like I don't do so much of the practicing. I do a lot of like writing down lines in my notes so I remember them. So when it's like time for a promo, I'm like, ooh, I could work that in now. Like there's that Divide promo I recorded on my phone forever ago, and I thought it was a great promo, and I was like, man, this would be perfect for like a situation where we're trying to show discourse in something or dissension, and it's like we've never had a time to use it, and I still just sit on that voice memo, and every now and then I listen to it and I'm like, oh, this is such a good promo. I hope one day I get to drop my Divide promo on somebody. Like, so it's like, it's almost like I pocket promos, so that way when you finally give me a scene where I'm like, hey, pop that in there.
Whenever you have two people take on a project together, and they're coming in at like an equal level, both are like equally in charge. A lot of times you can have moments where you're like butting heads, or it's almost like a too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. But it seems like you guys have like an established roles of what your strengths are.
You got to be real with people, and I feel like we're very real with each other. If we have a bad idea, we'll be like, that was a bad idea.
It's no bullshit.
Yeah, if we do something dumb, we call each other out. I feel like it would be different if we didn't communicate as much as we did. Yes. I think that's something that puts us apart is we talk a lot, multiple times a day.
To the point our partners are like
what is going on? But you got to. We at this point we are so busy and we have so much stuff to keep track of. Like we have to know our roles. We have to know what we're good at. I know I can sit here and create. I can write scripts. I can do graphics. I can make a T-shirt design. But when it comes to getting it out and promoting it, I won't do it. I just can't. I just don't have it. It makes me so nervous. So that's where Tony comes in, where he makes sure. Okay, here's the product. Here's how we can get people looking at it. He set up all of our online stuff. The table and everything it's all him. and I think that's something I'm really grateful for.
I want to give people good products and everything. It's like what we do with the bandanas and the tag ropes and like the ideas. Like your idea was the tag ropes. That was so.
I don't know if you can see it on camera. I got it right. I don't know the ones that you gave. Yeah, I got them hanging up right back here. The bandanas. Yeah. But you gave it to us last night.
I love the bandanas of how we're personalizing things, and it's stuff that we wear and we use.
You've got that chant, the what guys. Was there like the first time that hit, or was there like a
yes. What's that? Was that
I know.
capital?
Is there that moment that you can look back on and be like, okay, we kind of got something here. This might be over.
Yes. We were in Lansing and we'd been doing it in promos saying like, because we aren't just any guys, we aren't those effing guys, and we're talking about how, that we're the best over the rest and blah, blah, blah. And we didn't really have a chant yet.
Yeah.
And then we got in the ring for our match and I'm standing there, I'm getting ready. I'm doing a little Brock Lesnar, just hopping up and down. And he's behind me and he looks at me and I'm like, what? But he wasn't. He's just giving me this little shit-eating grin. He just looks in there staring at me like this. I'm like, what are you about to do? And he turned and he went, what guys? And he put his hands up. And I was like, oh, I'll do it too. And the whole room, those effing guys. And I remember I looked at him and I was like, whoa.
What does that feel like?
Because we have the camera clip and you can see me looking like, that was cool. And then we like tag. It's really that moment where you were talking about last night where you see us make that eye contact. Like,
we're not used to it yet.
Hell yeah, we're doing this, and we're getting those reactions. And that was really cool because I had talked a lot about that. We had been heels for a long time. We've been heels for a year. And I had that chant in my mind. I was like, when we turn babyface, that's going to be our Who's House chant. That's going to be our Swerve chant. That's going to be our what guys? And then I wanted three of them. I wanted the what guys, those guys. I'm sorry, what guys? Those guys. I'm sorry, what effing guys? And then we get those effing guys. But it's just gotten to the point where people are so ready to just chant it. So I just give them the one, and it's been enough.
Yeah, they jump on it so quick.
Yeah,
like it's over very clearly.
Looking at me like that was cool. Yeah, I was like, yeah, it was. I'm like, we should do it again. And I think we did it pretty close right thereafter again. And since then it was super over. And now we're just kind of waiting for other places where we're going to become baby faces and be like, I can't wait to debut that and start really putting that over as like the thing that people chant for us.
I hope one day we can get at least one appearance on some major programming and just get a whole arena of people.
That would be the most confirming moment I feel like ever, is getting in like an arena or something like that, or just a big venue and going out there and like wondering like, man, if I go what guys, is it going to be silence? Or am I going to hear like 10 people be like, what guys? Exactly. Or is it going to erupt and I'm going to sit there and try and not cry, because that's a moment you could only hope to get to in wrestling, to have that much recognition and have people really just love the stuff you're doing enough to like scream at the top of their lungs on your cadence. So
like the crowd reaction is obviously it's so important, right? It's your immediate confirmation of if what you're doing is being received, if it's over. And people watching this know, and you guys know, I've only seen this crowd. I don't know how much bigger and how much smaller it gets. So with these variable crowd sizes, or maybe even smaller crowd sizes, how does that affect? How do you not let it affect you in the ring if maybe you're getting a crowd that's a small group and they're just maybe you know, they're not with it, or they're not giving you that that reception that you're looking for. How does someone, especially if you're low experience doing this, how do you power through that? I feel like that would throw, myself included, that would throw so many people off if it feels like the moment that's supposed to get the pop in your head, maybe it doesn't.
I think the best way to go about it is keep in mind, like when you see the crowd, um, especially if it's smaller and if you're newer, focus on the personal interactions. I think that's something that we do a lot of, especially like for example in Lansing, at the place we work. It is typically not the biggest crowd. They have packed the house a couple times, but in that situation, it's more important to get those fun interactions with individuals. So in between matches and saying stuff to somebody, to them in the audience, to get people around them laughing. Like, can't believe he came out and just said that to that one person, and now they're into it, you know?
Mhm.
Or um, my favorite has been, there was a point where I was doing a match with an individual, and it was a singles match, which was odd because we usually do tag there.
Yeah.
And I was fighting with the guy on the apron. We did a pile driver spot. We spilled onto the floor right in front of everybody. And then I crawled up on somebody's lap and I sat like very like baby position. I was like, hold me, just give me a minute. And you know, everyone around thought that was funny because, you know, I'm in the crowd and I'm holding onto this individual like I'm scared to get back in the ring. You know what I mean? So like little crowds, it's really important to make those moments so that when people want to come back, because like I hope he does something over here next time, versus a big crowd where it's more about getting your chance over and knowing what they like, so that way the overwhelming amount of sound from them, you know, is in your favor. And it's scarier with big crowds because especially if a big crowd is quiet, because you're like,
Yeah.
oh no, this is hard.
I couldn't get 1 out of 500 people to react. Like
Yeah.
that hurts. That hurts more than
Oh.
anything. If I'm in a room with 25 people and no one reacts, I'm like, whatever. Like
Yeah.
like I'll get over it. Like, but yeah, that those large events can be like scary because it's like, man, if a big crowd doesn't react, the silence is going to be deafening.
What's the most people you guys have performed in front of?
Almost 1,000, I'd say.
Really?
Because I think the total was like, John didn't, because he didn't know how many people were going to show up initially, and then it was bus loads.
Yeah,
bus loads of people, so it had to be at least
nearing
almost 1,000.
And it was just, when that many people are engaging, it's like, God, you could give me a 500 person crowd that's like dead, and I'd rather perform in front of 50 people who are all engaging the entire time.
I want to go back a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the stuff maybe that after your match. You had a match with the Backseat Boys at CCW, and you made it sound like after your match there was some communication between the two of you. Is that a common occurrence? Where is there like a debrief window after a match where there's some communication of like how that went, what we could do better?
Yesterday was a little bit more unique because it was more a matter of hearing their perspective and what we could have worked on a little bit better, because they were the veterans of that match. They've been doing it longer than us, and so they were incredibly insightful from the beginning. But I mean, to answer your question, what it typically is, what we've experienced so far is a lot of planning before with people, especially if you don't know them, just figuring out what they do, what they want to get in. And then afterwards, it's mostly like, are you okay? Anything feel rough? Anything we should have done better? Anything that was a little funky? And most of the time, it's a quick little making sure everyone's okay. Thank you. Have a good day. But with them, it was very much in the beginning. This is something you guys should be thinking about and have this ready. I think after they saw us cut our promo and they saw how much everyone was into us and they saw that we at least know, you know, our characters down and what our characters do and the chants and everything like that, they were a little bit more comfortable, I'd say, with us, because they're like, okay, so these guys got something here. And they, you know, just they were making sure that going forward, you know, the things that we were missing or maybe lacking on, they were just giving us ideas and pointers on how how to kind of update our repertoire, you know, and be a little bit more prepared. Which, not to say we were unprepared in any way. I just feel like it was. I know we appreciate, you know, them taking the time to make sure that we had the knowledge we needed to be successful, not just in this match, but going forward. So it was definitely not normally how our matches usually go in terms of like the quick, just making sure everything's okay. But I know it was good. We always need that every once in a while, someone to be like, hey, this is what you guys do good. This is what you guys do bad. This is what you guys are just missing. This is what I would do. And then, you know, we just take that and run.
But there's definitely an etiquette. There's an etiquette about it. I think it's really important to have fun, be safe. You know, when we first started learning about wrestling, there's 3 rules. Be safe, make your opponent look good, help the match get over, put your opponent over, and have fun. And have fun is last. There's a reason have fun is last, because you need to be able to be safe, you need to be able to work before you can have some fun.
Okay, I got a couple more questions. And
Cool.
But the first one, just in case there is anybody watching who is itching to try it, and maybe they want to get into this and they're either nervous or they're not sure how or whatever, is there a piece of advice that you think you could give to somebody who wants to get into wrestling that maybe you think they wouldn't have heard by now? Something maybe that they wouldn't just be a simple Google search or something everyone would say. Maybe a little piece of those effing guys' wisdom that somebody could take and get into the industry.
You want this one? Or you want me to say this one?
Absolutely. Because I have a younger brother who he actually wrote our entrance music. So the ones you hear at our show, he's the one performing that. Shout out to him. He actually does our podcast with us. Super funny kid. And he's thinking about getting into wrestling as well. He's always been a fan of it. And he sees us doing it, and he's just, you know, he likes it a lot, and he wants to give it a try. And I tell him straight up, I'm like, this is the type of thing you have to love, and you have to give 150%, because the guy who trained us, Nick Zero, he tells, man, I've heard him say it so many times, where he goes, wrestling doesn't give back what you give it. It gives back half. So you
not even, sometimes 10%.
Right. So if you give 100%, you might get back 50. So you got to be willing to give more than 100%. And if you don't love it, because if I'm being real, especially in the beginning, to be blunt, wrestling sucks on the body and on the mind, and you have to be passionate enough to want to stick into it, and you have to want to be successful. Obviously, people can do it for fun. There's so many different reasons to be a part of wrestling. But if you're thinking you're going to join and in 5 years be at WrestleMania, you know what I mean? It's like you have to have realistic goals, and you have to just always remember why you're doing it. I know for me, I have never loved anything like, I don't know why I'm getting emotional.
No, I got you.
I have not loved anything like professional wrestling in my entire life. It's been the one thing I'm like, I feel like this is something I'm good at, that I always could do every day, that I can never get enough of. And I want to leave an impression that when people see us, they're like, wow, this is unique and special. And that's what really helps me, even during the times where I'm like, wow, that hurt more than anything in the world. But every time it's always like, ouch, followed by, I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
You know? So just before anybody tries it, before you find a school, find that reason. If you really want to do it, find the reason before, because it's going to be the thing that keeps you in it. And if you can't give more than 100% from in the beginning, that's fine. Take your time. It took me 3 tries to get into wrestling. When you're in a position where you can give everything, then do it and give everything. There's no half-assing professional wrestling. No. There's not.
Getting into wrestling is, like he said, you have to be so much passion. Like our trainer Nick Zero, and I mean even also one of our original trainers, Dylan Derringer, Hard to Kill. He also told us that what you put in, you don't get everything back. And if you're gonna go and be like, I want to be a wrestler, and you're so fixated on, I want to be part of wrestling, I'm going to be a wrestler, I'm going to be a wrestler, I'm going to be a wrestler. I say this to Jay all the time, and I think it's something my dad used to tell me, and I don't think he told it to me in a bad way. It was more of a like, it was my dad being real with me about the things I was truly talented about. And he just wanted me to understand that, like, truly what you're really good at and what he thought my strengths were. And he, you know, I used to play baseball and I was good at baseball. And I went into high school and then I didn't make the team or whatever. And he's like, I thought you should have made the team, whatever, yada, yada, but he used to always tell me not all kids should play baseball. Everyone who wants to play baseball can't play baseball. Not everybody can hit a ball, not everybody can catch a ball, not everybody can throw a ball. But you know what? There's so many ways to be involved with baseball. You don't have to be the batter, the pitcher, the catcher. You don't have to be the wrestler. You can be the announcer. You can be the guy who talks to the wrestlers. You can be part of the community and be involved with wrestling without being a wrestler. And I think there's a lot of people who have a beautiful place in wrestling and can't accept the fact that it's not being a wrestler sometimes. And I find that sad because I can see people who have this perfect place in wrestling where they could thrive, but they get fixated on being in a certain position of it. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes like wrestling is not for everybody. When the first day I came home, I looked at my partner after a practice and they're like, so excited to go back. And I looked at them like, I need to see if my body can handle this. I didn't even know if I was going to go back. I was so concerned. The next day I woke up, I felt like I got hit by a bus. It was terrible. And I was like, is this going to go away? And I remember listening to Chris Jericho talk about how your body builds up a callus after getting so many bumps. That was what kept me going.
I've heard about that like, with the ropes. I've heard that because I've never even felt wrestling ropes. And I've heard that someone who doesn't know, I mean, when I was first watching that, now I know a little bit, I understand a little bit better. But I first watched, it just looks like some rubber bands, and it's kind of like they send you. No, apparently those hurt, and I've heard people say like you build up a callus to those in your back.
I always say I don't want my first bump of the night, like taking a move or whatever. I don't want my first bump of the night to be in the match. If I can get to the show early enough where I can just take one bump in the ring, so that way my first bump isn't in the match, I'd take that. But yeah, truly my true words of advice to anybody who wants to get into wrestling. There's so many ways to do it. Don't get fixated on one way.
Okay.
You can try out so many different things. I've thought about it a million times. When I can't wrestle anymore, I'm so excited to explore the other options. I'm so excited. Like, since I'm older than Jay, I always kind of would say, I was like, I'm probably going to retire before you. And when that happens, I can't wait to be your manager. And then awesome. I can't wait to hop on commentary, because commentary is a passion of mine. I love commentary. When I first started wrestling, I wanted to be a ref, but someone told me to be a wrestler. Someone's like, no, you can be a wrestler. And I was like, are you sure? They're like, you've got what it takes to be a wrestler.
No, I can relate to that. We watch a ton over on our Patreon. We watch a ton of wrestling matches, and I'm always the one hyper focused on the ref, and I always find that part of the job so fascinating. And people are always trying to push me. You should just try. You should go do it. You should go. And so when I said I went to this indie show, and it's like, you're gonna ref for CC Dub one day, and I'm like, okay, well, we'll see about that. But like, it's definitely like you find something that you latch to, and it's not always the wrestling, because I think the commentary is very interesting. Last question. And you can interpret it. You can however you want to answer it. For those effing guys, what's the dream?
We've always had a deep, deep love for Ring of Honor, and we would love to be on their programming and love to be in a Ring of Honor tag title picture. That's like one of our personal goals. Where like if we do anything, that would be the more realistic one, hopefully.
Yeah.
But to if we're talking about what we would love to do, I think we would be a great fit for AEW programming. I think we would work really well with their tag division. I feel like our characters are so strong, and the way we build our matches, and the love for telling stories would just work so well with the guys over there in AEW. So I think TFG would be sweet there. And obviously everybody's, I mean, I think a goal of mine in the next year or two would be just to make an appearance on some major programming. You know, just put us out there. Watch the way we work with the crowd. And I'm not saying that in ring our skill level is there, but I think the right people look at us, and if we're given the right opportunity, we could make the most out of it. So so yeah, look out, because the minute we get that confirmation that there's a chance that we could show up on Ring of Honor, we would hop on that like
yeah. 100%. We love capturing opportunities. When we first started, and we were like in our first year or two, he used to call me the hawk, because people on social media be like, hey, I got a spot open in my car, you want to come down to this show? And I mean, that's really how you get started. You got to start making connections, hopping in cars, riding with vets, learning and hitting the road. And I used to hawk online. So if someone posted that, I was the first person DMing them, because I was like, I want to be there, and I want to go there with my tag partner Jay. And they're like, oh, okay, cool, I got 2 spots, we're in. And I'm like, sweet.
But for anybody watching and who thinks that we would be sweet, let's get some attention for TFG and ROH. I mean, come on, guys. let's make it happen.
Anybody watching it might have a connection, you know.
And it's funny, people
TFG for ROH. That's the new gimmick.
And it's funny, people will ask us all the time, like, you know, who are fans and stuff, when are you guys gonna pop up here? When are you gonna pop up there? I'm like, start letting them know you want us there. Like, I'm not gonna tweet at Ring of Honor and be like, well, you book, like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, that's unprofessional. Like, I hope one day that they want to work with us and contact us, or we have that opportunity to put a resume in, whatever it may be, whatever the process and how we want to do that. But I would love if fans are out there like calling for us to be there. Like, if you want us somewhere, let them know. Let them know, because that's the best way that you can do that, is let people know like who you want to see. Like, tweet at the promotions.
Really quick, dream match, tag team dream match.
I think we both know the answer to this, and it's a 3-letter acronym.
Oh yeah.
And we probably won't get it.
That's awful.
But it is FTR.
Oh yeah, FTR would be a sweet one.
That is someone we have modeled ourselves after, as far as how we worked when we first started. 100%. That'd be a really big one. I think a big dream match on your end would have been the Briscoes. That would have been incredible. I've always wished I could have wrestled the Dudleys. Obviously, we're a bit into an era where that's not going to probably happen. But
that was always mine, because when we started getting into tag wrestling, the Briscoe brothers were, I think they were wrapping up with Ring of Honor, and they were doing TNA stuff.
They had just had that 3 series with FDR.
Yeah,
it was so good.
And they were just kind of doing their own thing. And I'm like, man, they're not really anywhere specific right now. I think the chance of working with them would be, I mean, I love everything to do with the Briscoe brothers. So, you know, obviously it hit pretty hard when Jay Briscoe passed away, you know, a few years ago. So that was one where I'm like, man, that would have been, I think even with that being said, that's still a dream match of mine.
Yeah, regardless, it's a dream match.
We almost got another dream match. It almost came to fruition. We were supposed to wrestle the Motor City Machine Guns for the CCW tag team titles.
And that would be cool.
The month it was supposed to happen, they got signed.
To WWE. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
that is truly the one that got away.
Yeah. Because I think I saw on CCW's website that they had performed at CCW in the last year or something. Like it.
Yes.
So you were that close. That's a shame, but timing.
But hey, I mean, congratulations to them. They're doing great things over there.
Oh, absolutely.
Very good for them.
I got one more. This is one I want more than anything. I am such a huge fan of like New Japan Pro Wrestling and their entire product.
Oh yeah.
Give us the War Dogs, the Bullet Club War Dogs, in any sort of gimmick match, and we would tear it up. I want to be involved in anything with the Bullet Club so bad. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
I just, a match and a segment, something. So
this is perfect, because if any of these ever happen, I can always cut back to this and be like, see, they spoke into existence. Right. And
that's what we're doing. Give us Ring of Honor, give us the Bullet Club, give us AEW.
Yeah,
it's happening.
All cool things.
But yeah, thank you so much for your generosity, your time, and how much you're willing to answer some of the behind the scenes stuff. I really do appreciate it. I'm really thankful that shout out again, King Kong Coleman, for putting CCW even on my radar so I could check you guys out. I'm looking forward to seeing more of you in the future. If there's anything that you want to plug, promote, where people can find you, I'm going to make sure to put all your links and everything below. So if anybody wants to look more into these guys, maybe see their past stuff, but if there's anywhere specific you want to direct them, go for it.
That's always our joke when people refer to us as these guys are like those.
I think a lot of our stuff is on we have a .card page that has everything, our social media, our payment information for the merch, our fourth wall website, which has all our merchandise. Like we mentioned a couple of times, everything is made by us. So, when you get some stuff from our merch, it really helps us out because it's everything you see is made from us.
These hands.
Exactly.
Thanks again, guys. This was awesome. I really appreciate you guys giving me this much of your time. And I can't wait to see you guys. I can't wait to see everything you guys are going to do. I can assure you I'm going to be following along, and hopefully some more people watching along right now choose to do the same. But thank you guys so much.
Before we go, Jay, what guys?
Those effing guys, TFG.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for watching.